Thank you so much. And I'm not sure that the introductory remark about me is relevant to this session. But anyway, welcome to the session number 4, APC ICTs Turning Today's Youth into Tomorrow's Leaders and Engaging Students in Community Development through ICT. Always when we attend a conference and or workshop, and especially after very good and heavy lunch, and having all these papers and alert and participating in dialogue, it's quite challenging job. But I hope that we can have very productive session with the help of our panelists as well as our audience. So we have about 1.5 hours. So we start here. We have about what around 4 o'clock. Organizer, we have 1.5 hours. So we will have about 1.5 hours from now. So since the session title is about APC ICTs, Turning Today's Youth into Tomorrow's Leaders, and I would like to invite our program officer, Michael Riggs, to mention about APC ICT's work to set the stage. And then I would like to invite our panelists to talk about their experience in the ICTD curriculum and particularly utilizing the primary program in the class or in university, the curriculum design. And as our keynote speaker, Dr. Osman, said this morning, he mentioned that ICT technology, he said not ICT, he said technology. Technology is a tool, and what matters is human capital, and which we really believe, we agree with that statement. And APC ICTs, with the mandate of ICT human institutional capacity development, we believe that ICT alone is a simply tool. When it works for people and the people know how to use it, it transforms our hope into reality. So in that regard, and capacity development is very important, and also engaging our future leader youth in this capacity development, particularly linking ICT for development, is important. That's why we've been engaged in this work. So before I continue, let me introduce our panel member. On my right, Dr. Usha Reddy. Dr. Usha Reddy has been working more than 30 years in teaching and research and practice in ICT and communication. And she's been working with the APC ICT for many years. She is the author of our Academy Module 1 and the Primary Series Issue 1. And she's been delivering a lot of the Academy Module 1 and Primary Issue 1 in a number of countries in Asia Pacific. So before she was engaged with the APC ICT, I believe, Usha, right now you are currently a visiting professor in the University of Hyderabad. And also, previously, she worked for ASCI, Administrative Staff College of India. And before, she was director of Commonwealth Education Media Center for Asia, which was based in New Delhi, India. So we are very happy to have Dr. Usha Reddy joining today. And then on my second right, Mr. Amar Hussain Jeffrey has over 40 years experience of serving in senior position in the government of Pakistan. So he is retired government officer, but his passion and energy is not retired. And he's been working various ICT related initiatives, which I'm sure he will share with us about his work. And he is now president of Pakistan Information Security Association and also active in non-formal ICTD education. So we are also looking forward to hearing from him about this non-formal ICTD education component as well. And on my the left, first left, Professor Aryuna Nyamdabusa. I'm not sure whether we call her Professor Aryuna. She is professor at the Foreign Language and the Interpreting Department of National University of Mongolia. And she has actively worked with our center, APC-ICT, in promoting and localizing primary series in Mongolia. So, and we are very happy to have Professor Aryuna. And my second left, Professor Chan Basarudin. Dr. Chan Basarudin is Dean and the Professor at the Faculty of Computer Science in University of Indonesia. And he obtained his PhD in Mathematics and Computer Science from the University of Manchester. I heard that there are couple of other the professors who graduate from University of Manchester. So I'm sure you are happy to meet them. And since the launch of APC-ICT's primary series in February 2012, Professor Basarudin has been a key partner of APC-ICT in localizing content into Indonesia, the Bahasa language, as well as the promoting ICTD education in the country. And also the academic program we have, APC-ICT has as the first flagship program. He's been also partnering with the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology of Government of Indonesia, and together with the APC-ICT to bring to develop curriculum on the GCIO. And we are very grateful for his effort as well. So with this introduction, we would like to start the session. So we will first show about 4 minutes video on APC-ICT, which was developed in fact 2011 when we organized second regional forum on ICT human capacity development. And now we are working to revise that, to update information video, but it's not completed yet. So we are going to show that version. And then it will be followed by APC-ICT program officer's presentation. Michael will give a presentation with a highlight of this primary series on ICT for development flagship program. So after that, I will invite each panel to make presentation about their work in the field, about 7 minutes. And then we will open floor for Q&A and or further intervention from the floor. That is the structure that we would like to go for this session number 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the director mentioned, it's partly my job to keep you awake in the next 15 minutes. I apologize for the PowerPoint. It's not the best way, but we'll see what we can do, please. So I'm here to provide you sort of with a bit more detailed introduction to what APC-ICT does, some of our programs and projects that we work on. As you've already heard, APC-ICT is a regional body part of UNESCAP, the Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, and we were formed in 2006 in June. Our mission is to assist the ESCAP associate member and member countries to use ICTs for their own socioeconomic development. And we do this through the process of capacity building within these countries. And we take what we look at as a 3-tiered approach. We work on training, research and knowledge sharing around capacity building for ICTs, and also advisory services. And I'll talk more about each of these as we go along. In order to focus our resources and the work of our small team, and also to have a positive impact in the countries we work in, we have 2 flagship programs that focus everything we do. So one of these programs, the first one, is called the Academy of ICT Essentials for Government Leaders. And this is a 10-module program, soon to be 11, information products and training materials to help policymakers and government leaders work to apply policies that are appropriate for ICTs so that they can reach these goals of enhancing socioeconomic development. As I mentioned, this is a modular product. It is available in hard copy. We have some copies here with us if you'd like to see them. But it's also available online. These can be used in face-to-face learning environments, totally online, or through hybrid learning situations where the learner is working both online and offline. In addition to producing the original modules as we do in English, our national partners, who are very, very important in this, take on their own efforts to localize the modules for their own needs. And here you'll see a list of the various languages that the modules have been localized into. We currently have 12. And what I want to emphasize is that localization is not only a process of translation, but every module has case studies, and the case studies are also updated and adapted with locally relevant information. And so to date, the Academy has been launched in 27 countries in the region, which you can see here. We realize that many of us coming from educational backgrounds, many of us working in training institutions or institutions of learning, face-to-face learning is ideal in many ways, but it's not the way the world is working. There was a slide earlier about MOOCs taking over and destroying the old brick-and-mortar universities. APC ICT recognizes that, and as I mentioned, our training content, our learning content is provided both digitally as well as offline. In addition, we supplement these training materials with additional information, both for trainers and for policymakers and government leaders, in the form of knowledge-sharing products. There are several series of knowledge-sharing products, the case study series, what's called the knowledge-sharing series, and our briefing note series, which provides high-level overviews of the various topics we have in the Academy to high-level officials who really don't have time to sit through and review an entire 100-page document. We try and distill it down to a few pages of nitty-gritty information so that they can just get the key issues and learn what's important and then advise their staff. In addition to the knowledge products themselves, we recognize that we don't produce all of the useful products around. Our partners and APC ICT work together to make information as widely available as possible. The EcoHub has now, you heard in the presentation, the video, over 500. It now has over 830 objects, all related to ICTD capacity building for socioeconomic development. And the third pillar I mentioned earlier was advisory services. Again, these are to support the capacity developing work that we do, particularly to collaborate with our partner countries and institutions on improving their own capacity development activities, both through localizing and adapting the content we produce, but also in monitoring and gaining feedback and improving their own programs. We also have specialized advisory services, and the example presented here, GCIO, the Government Chief Information Officer Program, and then specific requests as we receive from time to time. So having given you an introduction to our first flagship program rather quickly, I'll turn now in more detail to our second flagship program, which is known as Turning Today's Youth into Tomorrow's Leaders. And it's our objective of imparting ICT knowledge and empowering students and youth. And so, you know, several people have talked about WSIS today already. Many of us were involved in some of the planning or actual WSIS events themselves. But there are specific references to youth and young people in the WSIS outcomes document. So one of those is quoted here, just to remind us that it's been 10 years now since the UN has formally recognized the importance of young people, specifically in the area of ICTD. And that we not only need to work with the leaders and intelligentsia and academia that we have today, but to make sure that our young people are prepared to participate today as well as lead tomorrow. We further have impetus from what's known as the UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development. This 10-year period goes from 2005 until this year, 2014. And we talk about the UN recognizes the need for a path to secure and sustainable future for our society based on education and learning opportunities for all. So again, education and young people are emphasized here. We further had emphasis brought out by the UN Secretary General himself, Ban Ki-moon, who reminds us that young people are actually partners in the development process, not just recipients, but partners that we need to engage. So under our program of Turning Today's Youth into Tomorrow's Leaders, we again have 3 pillars that we focus on, how we go about building capacity in young people. One is by providing opportunities for internship and work experience. One is providing advisory services related to education and curriculum development, and strengthening ICT education in institutions of higher learning. And I'll tell you a little bit more about each of these. In terms of internships, we provide formal internships for ASEAN students who's come to spend 2 to 3 months with us as part of a larger internship program and study program where they spend a year in Republic of Korea. They engage when they're with us on ICTD projects and research. So it's our job to impart to them not only knowledge about what we're doing, but also to give them an opportunity to see what it's like to work in a development organization that's focused on ICTs and how they might model their career in the future. We provide advisory services in the area of ICTD education, both secondary and tertiary. We work, as I mentioned before, on the customization and localization of our primer modules, the 4 modules that we currently have out. And we've developed a specific monitoring and evaluation framework for institutions that are using the primer, but in general are working on ICTD education programs. And this M&E framework allows them to monitor the work they're doing and also improve their work, because we believe it's very important that you not only work with what you have today, but you work on improving continuously going forward. So from this initiative that we started to strengthen ICTD education in institutions of higher learning, we started out with an objective based on what I discussed before, based on our learning and in developing the Academy series, based on the Secretary General's comments about engaging youth in development, that we needed to create a cadre of future leaders who would be equipped with the capacity to use ICT for achieving development. And we also believed we need to advocate for the increased coverage of ICTD in undergraduate and graduate programs in universities in the Asia-Pacific region. So again, APC ICT is still a relatively small organizational unit of the UN. Even though the UN is quite big, we're not so big. We started out by doing primary and secondary research. At the beginning of this program, we looked at what you were doing, we looked at what other people we know are doing in the region. We did very thorough surveys, including desk reviews, online surveys, and had discussions at events like this to reinforce what we were finding in our research, to determine that it was current, and to determine what issues were faced by the teachers who were really out there teaching the young people. And the results of this survey, quite a lot, actually. I'm going to cover it in 4 slides, and I'll try not to go too quickly here, but rest assured we'll have copies of this so you can refer back to it as well. The survey indicated that almost all of the educational institutions we discussed or did research on offered some sort of degree in either ICTs or socioeconomic development. But by and large, the ICTD programs were related to IT hardware and software. Social science departments tended to teach the courses on development. And there were small components of ICTD in some of the programs, so ICTD for development, not just ICTs alone. And they were across the semester, but it varied from university to university. And these courses were available both as graduate programs and available on special occasions. When we looked more in depth into what sort of ICTD content there was and how it was being offered, we found that there were 2 general types of content available. One is content or training available on the use of technical skills for ICT literacy, such as media and entrepreneurship skills for a knowledge-based industry. And then the second kind of content was more theoretical. Things that looked at the political economy, development, international communications, and development with sectoral focuses in various areas. In addition to learning about what was being taught, it was important to us, if we were going to have any hope of having a positive impact on ICTD education in the region, we needed to know how curriculum was actually being developed. How did teachers actually go about determining what they were going to be presenting to students? What sort of formats did they use with those students? What sort of hierarchy was there, if any, that was providing oversight and approval for these programs? So we found that in most cases the ICTD work was initially, the ideas were internally driven, or they came from a mandate by an external education agency. In all instances, we noticed that there was a rigorous and streamlined process already in place, and that new curriculums or courses had to follow the stated processes to be approved before they could be launched and applied. So we're looking at a situation where we have quite strong systems to work within, even though the content and the training we're looking at might not be where we think it should be. We also found that there were some areas within the region where things weren't common, where there was quite a bit of difference. Policy making in the educational systems were not equal. The structure, the requirements for courses, and how new proposals were put forward. Funding, which is always an issue, has various challenges and dimensions in different institutions. Curriculum frameworks and the courses and programs that were currently being offered that we could be built on. All of these things were differences that we had to take into account. So you think that as we're looking to develop information products that will be useful in a university's situation going forward, they have to be able to adapt to these differences. We couldn't prepare something that would solely fit the same situation over and over again. But in the end, I think one of the most important questions to us to answer was there a need for what this that we were talking about? Do we really need to expand ICTD coverage in the Asia-Pacific region? And we're pleased to say, I think, that the resounding answer through these surveys and discussions that we had was yes, absolutely. Almost everybody we talked to said there is a need for improving ICTD education in the region. Teachers are good at that. They're always looking for ways to improve. We had many different suggestions for ways in which this project could be implemented, how we could go about working with existing universities in developing their ICTD curricula. We also have a list of obstacles and potential ways to overcome those, ways that we could to overcome that may be valuable to people other than those who suggested them to us. So we're quite aware of this important issue of knowledge sharing. And we had lots of specific information on the key informants or the key players in developing a new curriculum. So these were the people we had to engage in taking our project forward. So, if there's an agreement that ICTD education does need some assistance, people are looking for ways to improve their curriculum. Teachers are looking to improve what they're doing. Students are looking for new and interesting topics to study in school. How are we going to fill that gap? So as you see, we came up here with a list of 4 things. We would work with our partners to develop and introduce new ICTD content for university students. We would strengthen existing ICTD coverage because we're not disavowing the fact that there's much out there to work with already. We'd create learning materials that are in a modular, flexible formula that could be useful both by students and faculty, that would be both faculty and student friendly. As I mentioned before, things need to be adapted. We can produce materials, but not every situation is the same. And this is where we came up with the primer series on ICTD for youth. So as I mentioned earlier, there are several modules now, but I'll talk a little bit of detail about the very first module, since we have the benefit of having the author of that module here. Primer 1 is just an introduction to ICTD. It's a foundation text for students of all disciplines, not just ICT, not just IT students, to understand why ICTs are important in development and to get an insight into how they can be applied in their own discipline. They provide learning outcomes and a rollout strategy for developing this into university curriculum around the region. Now, at APC ICT, one of our strong beliefs and processes is that we have very rigorous development processes for all of our content. We don't just do the research, determine a need, and go back to our office and prepare a report and a document. We work with many partners, and I'll give you a glimpse into what we did to develop issue 1 of the primer series. As the module was being developed, it underwent multiple reviews, including 92 experts from academic institutions, to ensure that the content itself is very high quality and that it was relevant to what's currently being taught in universities. We engaged many different types of stakeholders through many different programs. Many of them were face-to-face, and some of them you'll see listed here. I won't read through them, but you'll see that there were quite a few events, and we had thorough discussions about the draft that was being developed. We collected feedback from these experts and different stakeholders in the process. We talked not only to university professors, but also to other people involved in education, as well as the approval of curriculum, to ensure that we were developing something that would be of high quality and as well as for you. In October of 2011, Dr. Ree has mentioned APC ICT organized the second Asia-Pacific Regional Forum on ICT and Capacity Development. These regional forums are organized only occasionally. They are very large. They involve several hundred people. This one, I believe, although before my time, was over 500 people participating. Again, this was where the first draft was formally launched of the primer series. So it's just another opportunity for very rigorous debate and review to go on, for us to determine that what we're developing is actually of value to our partners, and that what we're developing will actually be acceptable within the existing university system. Coming out of this, we developed not only a content review, but also a strategy of how we would bring out the first primer series issue and how we would promote it throughout the region. And 16 countries self-identified as being particularly interested in working in this area. So the next thing we had was in February of 2012, we actually officially launched the Primer Series 1 in Azerbaijan, in Kafkas University. This was a great event. It's always very exciting when you bring something months and months and months of hard work by many people to fruition. So as I mentioned, Primer Series Issue 1 was introduced first at the second regional forum that was in 2011, and then country-by-country rollout began with Azerbaijan. Through this, we've managed to strengthen ICTD teaching capacities, and we've reached thousands of students so far. And today, we not only have one Primer Series issue, we have 4. You can see that the 4 are listed here. Primer 1 is on an introduction to ICTs for development. Primer 2 is on project management and ICTD. Primer 3 is on ICTs for disaster risk management. Primer 4 is on ICTs, climate change, and green growth. So they cover various different topics and also have different emphases in terms of the skills and knowledge that they're conveying to students. And forthcoming very shortly within this year, we'll have the 5th Primer Series module, which is focused on social media for development. And this is responding to the fact that we know that social media is used by youth. Most of them consider it second nature. And we're not looking at teaching them how to use it. We're looking at ways to engage them in the fact that it has development benefits, as well as it has benefits in terms of communicating with their friends of where's the best place to go out for cheap beer on Friday night. As with our Academy program, the Primer Series is not only available in hard copies, it's not only used in face-to-face settings. The modules are also presented online. There are also video lectures. It's not just a digital book. Students, or anyone for that matter, can register and log into this Moodle-based section, watch videos, view presentations, and participate in quizzes. There is a community of practice where our partners and people who are implementing the primer can go to discuss various topics, challenges that they're having, or even successes that they have in the implementation. And we're happy to say that the ASEAN Cyber University has adopted the Primer Series formally in their own content product. So to summarize the highlights of the Primer Series, since it's been rolled out officially really just in the beginning of 2012, so only about 2 years ago, it's been rapidly taken up. It's not where our Academy series is yet, but it's not as developed. It's been rapidly taken up in 13 countries and in 2 sub-regions, which you can see here. And in addition to the country-wide reach, we know that the Primer Series is being used by more than 90 universities in the region, and we've tracked more than 6,000 students. And as you'll hear, we've heard just today, just yesterday in fact, that Indonesia, the University of Indonesia has actually brought this to more than 11,000 students themselves. So our numbers are very conservative and something that we need to update and figure out better ways of tracking. But again, these numbers I think speak for themselves in that there is value in this. Our partners are using this in and of themselves. It's not just APC ICT out there pushing behind this. In terms of the adoption, not only have we produced these modules, so you see that we've not only produced the first one, but we've produced the second, third, and fourth afterwards. And the topics have varied depending on what people are interested in. We've responded to the needs that professors have indicated to us in what the students are curious to learn about at the moment. And our partners have localized these into many different languages. So far we have 5 languages available. And by producing the Primer Series, not only have we produced an educational tool, but it's also created something that's enabled people who work on university curriculum to have a dialogue. It's formed a sort of focal point about, look, we have these curriculum development tools. Does this mean ICTD curriculum is more important than we're giving it emphasis on? Should we talk in our university review boards more about why we're not covering this more carefully? So just quickly, last 2 or 3 slides. I'm here representing APC ICT. I talk about us, APC ICT, a lot. But we don't do this alone. We have not reached out to these something 20-odd thousand students. We have not produced the multiple language versions of any of our modules on our own. We do everything we do in partnership. We currently are very fortunate to count more than 105 partners who work with us on various issues, and many of those partners are represented here today and also in the audience. So we hope you get to know them more and learn from them about how valuable this work really is in their instances and how that may relate to what you're doing. This is our slogan. We did it in partnership, where DID stands for Developed, Implemented, and Delivered. So what do we, APC ICT, see as the way forward for us and our partners? We believe that ICTD education for young people is very important and that we need to strengthen multilateral cooperation in this area. It's not something that any single institution can be doing alone. To do this, we need to build and nurture strategic partnerships. We need to look for the people in this room who have opportunities and experience and knowledge that we can leverage and build on. We need to expand the beneficiary group. We have many partners. As I've said, we've reached many students, but there are many, many more. I'm talking in tens of thousands. There are hundreds of thousands of young people just in this region alone. We'll look to expand our advisory services to work with our partners to customize these materials to make them more useful in your own situation. To promote our knowledge sharing and research activities, both of ourselves and of our partners, because again, as I said, your experience is very important. And a major reason that we're here is to link ICTD classroom learning to community development. Has many, many opportunities that we see. It reifies the ideas that are presented in classroom learning. It gives students practical experience, but it also gives something back to the community, and it links ICTs to development, so that we're not always having students thinking about, I'm going to study ICTs and then I'm going to go to work for Microsoft. Not that there's anything wrong with Microsoft, but that there's more to ICTs than just technology development. And as Dr. Rhee has already said, we have another slogan, but that ICT transforms our hope into reality. ICTs alone are merely a tool. When it works for people and when people know how to use it, ICT represents our hope for a better day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Can you leave this slide on, the previous slide on, please? The ICT alone, yes, thank you. Okay. Now, if you see the hope and awe, you see that little cute Indonesian girl holding our first version of the academy module. She's daughter of our alumni. And then P, you see two cute Mongolian girl and boy, and they are also children of our alumni. And the last slide, it is Maldives National University students. We have professor participating in this conference from Maldives, and they're holding, I believe, primary series issue number 1. So this slide itself, when we create this slide, we communicated our partners, and we are going to have that exhibition that shows the APCHD's work, one of the ESCAP commission. And we need your help to send a photo of your children or your student and or yourself with holding the flagship program. It was it's overnight we will receive those photos. That indicates strong partnerships. And the Michael's presentation, we did it in partnership that shows a number of partners. And actually he missed to explain what we mean by did. Did, we did not mean a past tense of the verb do. Did stands for develop, implement, and deliver. So we did it together. So with that partnership, it makes happen. That's why the Academy of ICT Essentials for Government Leaders, thank you, Aruna. This program, the first flagship program, is available in 12 languages and now 13 languages. Because last month, we've been informed by Deputy Minister of the Ministry of ICT in Iran, saying that they now all localize content into the national language. So therefore, it is available 13 languages. Thank you. And these are the 4 issues of the primary series. And it's all available web. And if you'd like to have some hard copies, certainly we can share this with you. It is now available 5 languages, and it is all through partnership. When we develop, we engage our the government officers and also university professors. When we build it and we review process, they participated and they commented. Content was revised, and they took leadership to bring the content to their university. So we are very grateful for all the effort that put together to bring this ICTD curriculum in university context. So, and I'm really excited to have Professor Usha ready and also our academic partners together here and as panel member. And Professor Usha, you served as resource person. So you participated on this whole development process of primary series issue 1. So you know the demand behind this primary program. And also, you know, the primary program was launched in Azerbaijan, Baku, 2012. Was it February? February. We were in the middle of a snowstorm in 100 years history. It was very chilly, and almost all offices closed. But we continued our workshop to bring the primary program and to Azerbaijan. So that workshop was organized in partnership with the Kafkas University. So it has very good memory because we made it. And starting from this Azerbaijan, and you served as resource person to bring the primary program to various countries in the region. So I'd like to invite Professor Usha Reddy to share her experience and also her observations behind and developing this primary series, and also different experience you've gone through to bring the primary program in the different countries.
Thank you, Dr. Ray, and good afternoon, everybody. I will begin by saying something interesting. During the many months that I was grappling with developing issue number 1, we had many telephone conversations. And in one of those, I said, but Suk, what we're trying to do is not to change the world, but to develop a primer, a basic. And said, there is the word for it. There is the word for this. Will be the primer series. So that's where the word primer came from. But let me share with you, I mean, I do not know for what reason she's placed this much trust and faith in me. But let me share with you what was the process of, some of the process of development, some of the experience that I have had in, in training of trainers, basically, and delivering the primer number 1, issue number 1, in various country and regional settings. I think it's close to 13, 14 countries, and I don't even know how many sub-regions. It was a very difficult task because I'm an academic, essentially, accustomed to writing research articles, using jargon and very strong ground-based research. I was venturing an area which I didn't clearly know what was out there. And then the survey results of what was available came in. And this added actually to my confusion. As Michael has already told you, there is such great variety in the structure of education systems, the policy, the planning, the way curricula are designed, and how universities and higher education systems are set up, from the CIS countries on one side to the Pacific on the other, to South Asia and ASEAN on the fourth. This made it very difficult to understand what exactly could go into the primer. Plus, we found that many institutions were single discipline. So there might be just an institute of education, or there might be just an institute of technology, as against large, and there were others that were large conventional universities with some 79 disciplines. We found some of the institutions were only undergraduate. Some of them were only teaching graduate and doctoral work. So where do you pitch the content of the primer? There was also a great deal of confusion on what does this mean? What does, and in each institution, what does ICT for development mean? Should we place it within the engineering stream and a science and technology, or is it a social science? What is it? What is the nature of this beast, and how do we develop the content? I was clear that it was interdisciplinary, but many of my colleagues in many of the institutions were not clear because their own policies dictated that most of the disciplines that they would be teaching were in silos. So your biotechnology department never really communicated with theater arts or so forth. So they were doing. The other question was, is this a craft or is this a process? Is this a professional field? Or is this something like humanities, social sciences, where I can teach research? What is this, and how do I go about it? As if this confusion was not enough for me, there were even more issues that came up as I began trying to write the first draft, which was some 350 odd pages. First of all, I realized that if this was meant for faculty, then a faculty in a university would be teaching more than one course, and would be using more than one resource to teach that course. And I realized also that students would be carrying not one course, but they would be carrying a course load of about 3 or 4 other courses. So this would be one of 3 or 4, but this would certainly not be the only course that they would carry through a semester or through a academic program. Then they would be coming from different disciplines and backgrounds. Some of them there would be differences in the composition of the class. Some of them would be coming from, would be in rural colleges, some of them would be in urban, some of them would be technology institutions, some of them would be from teacher training. So they were coming from different disciplines and from different social, economic, and educational backgrounds. I realized also that students come with different priorities and goals. They themselves come into higher education possibly with career choices open, and not necessarily with the development perspective that I might have. Then the funding constraints, the extent to which one can put interactivity, these were all issues that would have to be addressed. So basically, where was the common denominator? And that was what I found very, very hard to arrive at. The common denominator of what would go into this particular issue 1. So as you will see, if you will look at the primer, what it ultimately ended up being, and I make no apology for it is a basic learning tool, and that is all it is. It is not intended to be an encyclopedic version or a complete exhaustive study of the area of either communication and development or of ICTs for development. The question also came up as to where do I enter the subject from? Should I start with technology or should I start with issues of development? If I put too much of paradigms and theories of development, will the student be turned off? So how do I begin? I chose the option saying the development was more important and bigger than the ICTs, and that the ICTs were tools or means by which we'll reach larger development goals, and that is how I entered it. So it is a basic learning tool. But in this basic learning tool, we had to have structure. And even in that structure, we deliberated over, I think, 4 or 5 iterations to arrive at that structure. And that instructional design, little chunks of knowledge combined with ideas to think about, exercises, case studies, questions that were raised, and then going on to the next. And all of the case studies, all of the materials that I tried to find from what I call the public domain, because I realized that there's a severe shortage of books in many of the countries. Added to the shortage of books, many of the books that are published, with all due respect, in many of the Western countries, find little resonance with the grassroots reality that we face in the Asia Pacific. So I said, I am not writing for the London School of Economics. I am writing for a student, maybe in Kazakhstan or Azerbaijan, who just will never have access to the kind of materials that I would be prepared to buy. So it's a very limited overview, and therefore, and it should be treated as such. And one should recognize that the language in it sometimes seems to be a little simple, journalistic, not the usual way that I write, because it has to be understood and it has to be translated. It would have to be translated, localized, customized. Case studies that were used were from the entire region, trying to give a geographic coverage of the region while maintaining the core sanctity of a case study. Not all of them were successes, not all of them were failures, and it's a continuing challenge to put in case studies and real life experiences in learning materials of this kind, because nothing you say to any faculty in any country and they will is that this is relevant, and they will say, but this is not a Bangladeshi case study, and bring us something from our environment because that is what is relevant to us. And some of those case studies are in the local language, which I don't read and I cannot access. So there are a lot of questions that emerged. But what did the deployment, I would say, what did the TOTs, the training of trainers across these 17, 18 countries, what were the learnings from there? One, across the board, there was a demand. The demand was not just for the content, and the demand, I think, continues now, that the countries want whoever is the original author of that module. It could be the one on project management, it could be the one on disaster. They want the original author of the module to come and to align the thoughts that are in the module with theirs. So there is a demand across the board. There was not a single place where I came across any query as to why is this useful or anything. They said, everybody said, we need it. The government officials said that, faculty said that, students said that, and students were sometimes ahead of their faculty. The second issue that the experience taught me was that wherever we were able to have a local resource person support, for instance, we've had tremendous support in Indonesia, which Professor Chand will tell you about. It has been wonderful in terms of rollout. Philippines is another example that has been very strong in communication and development, and therefore the backup that we were getting for the module. So local support was critical, not just for delivering the content, but also for local case studies. Language has proved to be a challenge. Because it's written in English. Some of the terms used are in English. It is delivered in English. In many a setting, sometimes we've had simultaneous interpretation, which automatically waters down what you can deliver, and sometimes we have not. So the language has been a challenge. Therefore, the localization of the primer series is absolutely critical. On the other hand, when you talk about localization, English is the language of IT. So there's this dilemma. Should we keep it in English and force them to learn, or should we take it to the local language? I have no way of knowing whether the translated versions are as true to the original in the idea, not just in the word, as the original was written, because I cannot see them. I have to rely on my local colleagues to tell me, yes, this is the idea. I've also had local, I think from Kyrgyzstan and even from Indonesia, they have told me that parts of it have been difficult to translate. And from Kyrgyzstan, they told me particularly the ideas, the whole of development and what was explained there are very, very difficult for them to translate, because they've had a different historical growth. So parts of it are difficult, parts of it are easy, but on the whole, the demand has been phenomenal. While I jokingly say that it is difficult to present the same content over and over and over again, I still say that whenever I present it, it's a new experience, and I enjoy it very much. I believe that this is a beginning. I do not believe that it is the end-all or the be-all. I believe there is a lot in the primer issue 1 that can be replaced, improved, and done much better than I could have done. I believe that I have not done enough justice to the faith that was placed in me, because I couldn't do it in 120 pages. So I believe this, and I'm honest enough to admit that the primer finished in 2012, January, published, is probably out of date today, given the way in which technology has gone. And so I would like you all to take a go at it, and please improve it, because I see every word in it, and I don't see the mistakes. So these have been some of the challenges, but it has been excellent. And I believe the next round is in Myanmar. That's what I'm told. That is a different challenge in itself. So each of these, in this diverse region we call the Asia Pacific, the fastest growing region in terms of mobile phone growth and use. The possibilities are tremendous. The challenges are even greater than the possibilities, but there is what we say in many countries, there is no alternative, the TINA factor, in terms of using ICTs for development. And I think all of you have to contribute in terms of making these materials and the delivery of this content better, because we will all then work to achieving the kind of goals and the vision that I think University of Philippines Los Baños set out for us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Usha. And before I call another panelist, let me ask audience, are you enjoying this session? No reply. Because I feel guilty not to engage our audience in our dialogue, but we have a number of presentations to be made, so we may do, we continue, and then we do Q&A session afterwards. And or would you like to ask some question? So it is important we go on the same pace, right? So maybe we hold up the questions, and after we will get the questions after we finish the presentation, because to make sure that all presentation to be delivered, right? Okay. Then I'd like to call Dr. Basarudin. And the University of Indonesia and Academy Program, Ministry of Science and ICT, they are the first adopter, bring Academy Program to be institutionalized in the civil servant training program. And similarly, University of Indonesia is one of the first adopter to bring the primary program in university curricula. So I would like to invite Dr. Chan Basarudin, who is Dean and Professor at the Faculty of Computer Science in University of Indonesia, to share his experience in implementing primary series in Indonesia, and also what could be done to further improve the quality of ICT education in Indonesia.
Thank you, Dr. Ree. Selamat sore. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know it is really hard time, for all of us to listen to the talk while for this time of the day. Let me first a little bit introduce our university. University of Indonesia is one of the biggest state universities in Indonesia. Now we are housing around 50,000 students, and the location is in Jakarta, the capital city. This university is a comprehensive university, so we offer degrees in almost all disciplines except in agriculture and fine arts. And the presence or the publication of primer in early 2012, I think is very timely, because during that period of time we were doing assessment and evaluation for our general course for undergraduate, and we have a slot for ICT, but prior to the primer, the content is very much on the ICT literacy. And you know that by 2008 or even 2005 or 2004, computer literacy is not really an issue, because most, if not all, students already master how to use computer anyway. So, and we were thinking what will be the content for that particular slot inside our general course. So we embed the primer inside our general course for undergraduate, for the first year of undergraduate student, and based on our calculation, the whole content of this thick, quite thick lecture notes can be completed within about 3 weeks. So we developed that and integrate that into our curriculum. And the first step, we invited IPC ICT to give us the training for our facilitators or lecturers. So in February 2012 or March, I think, we conducted the TOT. And the first batch of the student who actually involved or taking this primer is the batch of 2012-2013, which is started in September 2012. Now, I forgot to mention that undergraduate student in our university, the annual intake is around 5,500 or 6,000 per year. So you can directly count, because this general course is compulsory for all undergraduate students. So by now, 2 batches already completed, meaning around 11,000 already taken this content on ICT Primer 1. I would like to come back to the design of the implementation or the adoption of Primer 1 into our curriculum. So the general requirement course actually is 6 credit unit, but it contains many other things. And the ICT 4D will occupy about 3 to 4 sessions, each of 6 hours per week. And we focus on the topic related to ICT for the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, because as Dr. Reddy already mentioned, that it's not that easy, to prepare a content for students coming from various disciplines, from social to humanities, science, engineering, and so on and so forth. So we decided to select the focus on ICTD, for the Millennium Development Goals, which is apparently quite, adequately covered inside the Primer 1. And the implementation is, we use nowadays, they call it a flipped classroom or something like that, because a student will have to read and use the materials that we put online, while the session, the in-class session, will be used for discussion. And 150 minutes for each meeting will be divided into 3 parts. The first part, we call it the focus group discussion, where the student in the group will have to, attend discussion about the topic that being already introduced in the previous week, or already put on the web or on our e-learning LMS. And the second chunk is after the focus group, we have a home group, and then we have the plenary discussion. Usually it's always like that, and students are very, very active during the 150 minutes time or period of meeting. And it's already brought up by Dr. Reddy that the facilitators need to be there and facilitate during the discussion, be it in a group discussion, focus, home discussion, home group, or during the plenary. So imagine to deliver this for 5,000 students. We divided into 2 actually. So the 5,500 students divided into 2 batches, odd and even semesters, so around 2,500 for each. So we need to have a lot of facilitators. Now, to prepare this facilitator is really a tall order, because we cannot ensure that all of them will have adequate knowledge about the content, and also it's very difficult to engage even the lecturer, to like and also into this area. So that's the challenge that we have. And another issues is actually the materials already translated into Bahasa, our national language, early 2012, soon after the book is published. And we put 2 versions on the web, and majority of the students will choose the English version, and only small portion of them will use the local language for the materials. But they still find it difficult to find other resources apart from this primer. So we have to add and develop the local particularly the cases, local cases that will trigger the discussion. Because the way we deliver this to the student, we ask them to work and discuss particular topic, like for example, whether ICT can be used for mitigate the flooding or natural disaster and so on and so forth. And finally, of course, the biggest challenge, as I said before, is how to prepare hundreds of facilitators, that has not only knowledge and skills about ICT 4D, but who have the heart on that, the passion on this area. So we haven't got the answer to that, and we still try to build that pool of facilitators. Okay, thank you very much, and that's all, I think, for the case of University of Indonesia.
Thank you so much, Professor Basaruddin. And now I'd like to invite Professor Ariuna Niamdaba. And I believe University of Indonesia has over 50,000 enrollment. And your campus is about 4,000 students. Yeah, so maybe the different size of the students' enrollment may have also influence in terms of implementing primary program. But depend also the localization effort, and there are various approaches. Maybe it's different from the universities and other universities. So we would like to hear from Professor Ariuna about her experience and bringing primary program to her country, and also she was leading and localizing content into Mongolian language.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In 1234, the Mongolian Empire of Genghis Khan set up the world's first long-distance postal transmission system known as Maringurto Horse Relay Station. The modern communication development began in the 1913 with the first international telephone exchange. Those days are gone, but now Mongolia is enjoying another information boom. Its ICT has been developing rapidly over the past several years in Mongolia. The Ministry of Education has been bringing change and fresh air to the education sectors in the ICT field, actually. This is especially true of the National University of Mongolia, which has been trying to renovate its approach to higher education. The National University of Mongolia is the country's oldest and only comprehensive university and the leading of the sciences, education, and culture. This university has begun to collaborate with UN APC ICT in 2011 and had translated their Primer Series 1 into own language in 2012. We have been applying the primer into the curriculum of the course named Information Technology since the academic year of 2012. We require free credits of information technology courses in the first and second semester of the first academic year. Our IT classes used to teach only hardware, software, and internet networks. But since we started primer series in our curriculum, many changes have begun to show. In the past, the course books that we used didn't have specific information for teachers to teach students of various majors. But now we have realized that our students have become more engaged and motivated by using the primer. This is true because there are tasks such as case studies, youth in action, practical exercise, points to remember, test yourself. From this, it's possible to point to two things which help students become motivated. First one is case study. This section allows students to become more familiar with some of the major changes in the IT field. For example, in the case Study 8, ICT Educational Initiative in Rural Schools in Mongolia. Our students found out that in 2006, Asian Development Bank funded computer laboratories in 37 elementary and middle schools in rural areas of Mongolia. Some of our students had actually studied in those laboratories when they studied in secondary school. This primary is close to their real life, and therefore students are more motivated to do better in the class. Next. Next task is Youth in Action, synopsis of what young people have done or can do in the field of ICTD. Students can include their suggestions on ways in which other students can access and develop their own capacity in the area of the ICTD. The intention of this task is to inspire students to go beyond classroom learning. For example, the class of ICTD, please back one. ICTD, Preservation of Cultural Diversity, the part Youth in Action 13, Tell Your Story, says that life and memories are made of the stories of our lives. It is shared memories that make us who we are and being as a family and as a community. While getting to know these part, students set a goal during their summer break to learn about their local cultural and historical heritage, and also to find out about 3 generations of their family's histories, turn it into a digital record, and store it for next generation. We focused on teamwork while we implemented these 2 tasks. Teamwork is a good way for students to exchange and improve their knowledge. Using ICTs for development is essentially teamwork and the building of partnership, where each individual brings her knowledge and competencies to develop a more successful project. Localizing primer series was a very good experience for us. We have seen all positive changes to students' STEM to gain more knowledge. Therefore, all students deserve to have the faculty. In order to broaden primer series, and National University of Mongolia will reach to Ministry of Education and introduce about our results, and will work it with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Aryuna. Thank you so much. And as you heard from Professor Aryuna, when we talk about localization, we need to think about 2 levels. One is language, another one is content. So they introduced the case studies which is relevant to Mongolia. That is another level of the localization she demonstrated. And before we move on, the last speaker in our panel, I'd like to call Professor Bishaka from Moratwa University in Sri Lanka. And she has been a champion of the Sri Lanka, bringing the primary program to the country. So I'd like to invite you for 1 minute to share your experience with our audience.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Sri Lanka had a training of the trainers at the earlier stages. And with that, what we have had is most of the humanities, social science, that type of faculties picking up ICT 4D in their curriculum. I have a very special story to share. Southeastern University of Sri Lanka, located in a very remote corner of the country, has had problems of introducing IT or ICT 4D into their curriculum. But motivated by the primer, because they had material, they started teaching this. Today, the class which has 25 students, 23 of them are female Muslim students who are aspiring not just to be the teaching professionals or what the humanities students are familiar of, but who are aspiring to assist the government in policy making, wanting to work in private banks. They do have the localization part of it comes. We have what we call ICT 4D project, where these young undergraduates are motivated to go and work with the community. So this is one thing I actually look forward to, because they will be starting it next semester, and engaged learning would perhaps give us that. At present, we have 4 universities using the primer series. I believe that's all I get to.
Thank you so much for your intervention. In fact, we heard from Professor Aryuna, Mongolia, saying that the Mongolia National University is going to discuss with the Ministry of Education in terms of here institutionalization of the primer into university curriculum. Now, actually, we do have here, in Sri Lanka cases, one of the success factors was strong support provided by the Ministry of Higher Education. I think that was very important. And we have, where's Mr. Akhtar Hussain from the member University of the Grand Commission of Bangladesh? Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to have you here. And I was in Bangladesh just last month, and I had a meeting with the Minister of ICT, as well as the State Minister on this University Grand Commission of Bangladesh. Certainly, in order to have a primary series to be implemented at engaging more universities, and that is important to have strong support from your institution and also government. And the academic program, one of the reasons the program has been adopted by so many countries is because it was more or less on the top-down approach. But the primary program, we've been working with the university level, and it takes more effort. Therefore, this is the first time that we invite our government side, the representative, to this kind of activity. So, Mr. Hussain, we are very happy to have you here. And we have another session, session 8, and also morning hour of the Thursday. We would like to hear from government perspective toward to this initiative as well. And Bangladesh has quite 160 million population. I believe over 30% are like the youth. So the bringing ICTD curriculum in university, the environment, and as well as non-formal, the education, and addressing the need of ICT for them would be also important initiative to be considered. Now, Pakistan. We have here Mr. Jeffrey, and who served for government, now retired from government officer position, but he himself said over lunch table, his responsibility is safeguarding information system and information asset. But his passion is promoting information communication technology for betterment of the society. So we are happy to have Mr. Jeffrey. And the Pakistan also has quite a large population of the youth. Yeah. But yet, we were not able to bring this ICTD curriculum in universities in Pakistan. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Ammar Jafri and his perspective and in the importance of including ICTD in university curriculum, and also the initiatives that he's been leading in Pakistan.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thank you all. So briefly, I come from Pakistan, and as Dr. said, I come from a government background, so I understand the government perspective in this regard. So yes, we have not up till now started the primary series in Pakistan, but there is all the advantage of taking a late start because we will take the benefit of all experiences from the predecessors. So starting from today, a brief presentation, I'll be covering very briefly about Pakistan. Then we'll talk why ICT for the youth is important in Pakistan. Then we'll talk about the 4 initiatives we have recently taken the last 2 years in Pakistan, and I'll try to catch up with all these initiatives. So very briefly about Pakistan, we are located in the Southeast Asia, and the population is nearly 120 million. And you can understand the capital is Islamabad, and we have the borders with India, China, Afghanistan and Iran. And it's a wonderful country having 4 seasons, and I think out of top 10 peaks of the world, we have 7 peaks of the world. The north part is very beautiful, and we are strategically located in a very important location of the world. Now, starting from the why ICT education is important for youth in Pakistan. The population rate is very high in Pakistan, and but interestingly, the youth population is I think among the highest in the world. So we are trying to leverage upon this manpower resource in Pakistan, and naturally, so what we are listening since morning, that development of human resource is a very vital factor for the development of countries. So you can see that majority of the population lives in the rural areas of Pakistan, and the telecom infrastructure and the internet infrastructure is excellent. Trust me, I travel a lot in the world, and I see when I work at my home, the internet, when I work in a village, the internet, I can seriously tell you that the telecom and I think the telephone is in the remotest corner of Pakistan, wherever we go. And the internet, now 3G and 4G, all the latest technologies are there. So we need to train our youth to leverage these facilities and this wonderful country. And naturally, I am very positive that with the help of APC, ICT and all these things, we can leverage upon. So we need to bring ICTs into our working areas, and we need to minimize the digital divide in Pakistan, because I sincerely believe that divide is increasing now with a more exponential rate. So unless we do not catch up with the previous divides, it will be difficult for us to catch up with the future divides. So with all this, we are very positive that if we work on the primary series in Pakistan and catching up the ICT's transformation into the development of societies, I can, with the entrepreneurship we have, and I can assure you, Pakistan has got the best ICT youth. Our best brains are working in Europe, America, and different advanced countries. So, I think last year we took this initiative of ICT for Development Task Force in Pakistan. So this is a joint platform of working by the government organizations, by the private sector organizations, by the NGOs, and all stakeholders of ICTs. I am the chairman of this task force in Pakistan, and it's working with the inclusive approach. We don't stop anywhere to join this task force. Private sector and public sector and everybody is coming, and very especially the provincial governments. Pakistan has got 5 provinces, and the provincial governments are very actively cooperating in this task force. We have got 4 teams in the task force. One is working for the e-education, is working with the e-health, and the third one is e-agriculture, and 4th is the e-governance. So you can see he is our Federal Minister for Education, and in December 2013, he actually led this conference, and you can see the provincial minister sitting in the background. It was in Marriott, Islamabad, and it was attended by nearly 400 people from different parts of the Pakistan. You can see it. This is our ICT for Education Task Force, and you can see the Provincial Minister of KPK, Mr. Atif, sitting and heading the task force. You can see the government officers. You can see the officers from the Ministry of Education and the NGOs and private sector organizations, and they are all leading it. You can see there are our health leaders of task force. You can again see Mr. Shahram Khan. He is the health minister there right now. You can see the secretaries and all important people, and they are actually convening a panel discussion on the and audience are listening to them. You can see the task for agriculture, and this is our agriculture team for ICT for agriculture. And finally, these are the team for the good governance in Pakistan. Because we sincerely believe that unless we do not include the ICT pattern into the governance issues and taking the benefits of the government services to the doorstep of people of Pakistan, I think we cannot minimize the divide. Next is ICT for Girls. This is a recent initiative. We took it 2 years before, and this initiative is based on the fact that girls are normally the hub in a family, especially in the rural areas. For example, if you train one girl in a rural family, she will first educate her brothers and sisters, then she will educate the friends around her. Then if she is married, she will educate her own kids. So if you train one girl into ICT, I sincerely believe that we will train 10 people in next 15 to 20 years of time. So they have got a high performance level, and right now we are focusing on ICT for Girls initiative in Pakistan. It's being supported by UN Women and one more organization. It's called Plan International, and they are supporting us in preparing the girls in the Pakistan. And last year we celebrate the ICT for Girls Day, which is always the last Thursday of every April in every year. And in 2014, you can see the picture. You can see the Federal Secretary attending the ICT for Girls initiative. This was taken by our organization, Task Force organization. And you can see the girls here. Look at the jubilant. The girls are celebrating after taking. It's only 2 months back initiative, and 400 girls came from different parts of Pakistan. And you know the Balochistan, which is the Iran border and Afghanistan border, girls came from those areas to receive their awards and certificates. And a 11 years girl, she is now mentoring the girls in her area. So I'm very excited that all those areas which have become famous for terrorism in Pakistan, the girls from those areas came, and now they are getting ICT education. So next is our Women Entrepreneurship Program, and this is the program in which e-village project is now collaborating with number of international organizations like Telecenter organization, and Dr. Chim is sitting from APTN. We are for the last 2 years working with APTN, and we are empowering the women in the rural areas of Pakistan, and special focus is being given on the partnership with universities, with NGOs, because we are scattered around on the entire country, and we cannot work without partnerships. So we need to bring on board universities, NGOs, and the local politicians there to empower there, because community mobilization is very important. I know Dr. Ray is seeing on the watch, and I'll try to finish in the next 2-3 minutes. So economic empowerment of women has become very critical part in Pakistan, and now our next focus would be on the economic empowerment, and especially we are focusing on the local skills which these women can do to get their economic empowerment initiatives. You can see our partner organizations. Only 5 months before we had this event in Islamabad, so you can see the group photo of the partner organizations who are there working for the women empowerment. You can see our training academy in Islamabad. This is right in the NGO office in Islamabad, where women are being trained on the computer skills. There are 10 trainer programs, and when we will start the primer series in collaboration with APCIT, will use the same computer lab there for the trainer of trainers. Finally, this e-village project, it's started in 2009 from one village from Islamabad. That was the first village in Islamabad where we took the broadband on fiber optics. Now we are exist in more than 120 villages. This project, e-village project, takes actually focuses on taking the power of ICTs to rural parts of Pakistan and to empower them through ICT skills. Actually, we are trying to partner with number of organizations and take help and lead from their initiatives. Recently, we started a project like laptop or hilltop. This project has been specially designed for the hilly areas, because I think 30% part of Pakistan is on the hilly area, and there are a lot of population living on those high mountains. They never came to the grounds, so there's no school there. So we started this project, laptop or hilltop. In this laptop, there are 6 hours of battery there. There's a girl or a boy who takes this laptop to the different parts of the hill, and after 2 hours session, after 3 sessions daily, he or she come back and community pay him or her something. We don't charge anything for that. We give them laptops, we give them our customized software, and they learn the ICT skills and education on the hilltop through this program. This ICT Buddy program we have recently started, in which we are trying to club the master's students from the universities with the village students, and we call it ICT Buddy. The master's student in a leading university or in a city university goes to the village as an internship program, and we are working on a number of projects. I think time is short, I cannot go in details, but I think our next focus will be ICT for peace and tranquility in the region, because I come from a country where we have got of political and other sectarian and ethical troubles. So I see that I intend to work with all those countries, and please let's join hands together to use ICTs for peace and tranquility, because I think since morning we are listening that ICT is an enabler. We should not take ICT as a sector. It can enable number of initiatives, and I think we should focus on peace and tranquility. I thank you all for giving me a patient listening, and we'll be around for giving any more thoughts on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amar Jafri, for your good work in ICTD initiatives. Before we open, I know we are running out of time and we will be short, but we have here Professor Ken. I saw Professor Ken from, I believe, the Multimedia University of Malaysia, who attended one of our primary partners meeting. So may I invite Professor Ken to intervene if you'd like to share any of your thoughts about this primary program or ICTD curriculum in your university or in Malaysia in general, because we have large audiences here are from universities in Malaysia. I would like to invite the Professor Ken for that.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Ree. My name is Dr. Ken. I'm from the Faculty of Creative Multimedia. I was invited to attend the primer series number 2, I think. It was in Korea last December. And the whole idea, what I got from there was they explained a lot of the books that you saw, the project management, the green technology, as well as I think social media and things like that. And what I took home from that was to try to implement in my faculty at this point in time the project management methodology that was given during that primer series. And so far it's going to be implemented this June. And the whole idea is we switch the focus on just pure project management into project management on a outreach program that they have to do. So students will be doing projects that will involve perhaps like green technology, and they are also go into outreach programs into orphanage and old folks homes and things like that, to come up with things that by using ICT that will benefit those communities. So at this point in time, we are doing at the faculty level, but there's also a proposal at the university level to move up to expand the outreach program into a sort of what we call a personal social responsibility program, and hopefully within a year or so that will be I don't like to use the compulsory, but we encourage throughout all the different faculties within Multimedia University to allow our students as well as staff to participate in more community-based work. However, I think there is a need, especially in my university, for more partnership with the UN and also the ICT to understand the idea of development, not just the ICT side, but also to understand the idea of development. Hopefully that will encourage more of our students who, I think, looking at many of the students groups, a lot of students groups are involved in that, but we would like a more cohesive and also a more focused type of outreach program also, or development program from hopefully with a partnership with APICT as well. Okay, so that's the things that's happening in MAU at this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kane, for your intervention. So then before we wrap up, we have here another 2 sessions and also coffee break and scheduled. Certainly we can continue our dialogue during coffee break as well, and also tomorrow and the Thursday morning hour as well. But is there any burning question you would like to ask to one of our panel members? Any question or any remarks? Okay. From Kazakhstan.
Hello, everybody. My name is Saltanat. I'm from Kazakhstan, from the University of Kimop University. I'm very happy to be here, to participate and to meet and to listen to all these interesting speakers. I have a question about implementing this APC ICT primer series, into the university. Can we, for example, if I want to implement it in my university, how should I start this, or whom should I contact? Probably this is a question for representatives or either for those who have already implemented in the institutional level, or I don't know, maybe some of the speakers could help me, because it's really very helpful for me to learn, because I came here to learn more about engaged learning. And as far as I understand, after listening to the speakers, I'm already doing some of these projects in my teaching. But I would like to introduce it for other faculties in the university. Actually, I'm from the Media and Communication faculty. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. And certainly APCIT can respond to the question, but I'd like to invite Professor Usha Reddy, because she's been engaged in so many universities in different countries, and also not only as a resource person to deliver the content, she's been also providing advisory services in terms of implementing primer in university curriculum. So.
In terms of implementing the primer series, ideally, there are several stages. I think the first instance is to have a training of trainers or faculty from all different disciplines and departments, because this is a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary field. It is entirely up to the university or the institution to decide how they best wish to integrate it or wish to implement it in their program. Okay? It's entirely up to your institution. You may choose to do it with just one faculty member teaching bits and pieces out of the primer issue to your students. You may choose to do it by taking the 4 primers and offering a full course. You may choose to do it by integrating what Indonesia has done as a mandatory portion of the foundation courses. How you choose to do it is really best suited to your requirements, which you understand better than we do. But you're completely free to use it in any way that you want, even just use the case studies, the exercises, But the place to start is really to first have a training of trainers, in which, and one has already been done in Kazakhstan. And I think Liyazat is the nodal person there, right, in Kazakhstan? And you can check with her or check with APC ICT also. And first is to have a training of trainers, to build a resource pool, which will then provide the training.
Thank you, Usha. And the Kazakhstan, I can introduce those who attended our workshops and several workshops in primary program so that you can have meeting when you return to your country. So, would you like to ask, then let me take one more question and then we will wrap up.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Prof. Ree. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Poiti from Malaysia. I would like to follow up on Dr. Usha's remark. How do we go about the TOT or the TTT? Do we invite people from your organization, or do we invite people, facilitators from local universities? For example, the immersion, of Malaysian universities into adopting this primer series. Because I've not heard of any representatives from Malaysia yet. Thank you.
Can I call Professor Vishaka, how you organize training of trainer engaging many different universities in Sri Lanka, and which UNAPCST responded the call for sport to organize training of trainer sessions?
Thank you, Dr. Ree. As Dr. Ree said, we had the blessings of the Ministry of Higher Education. Secretary himself was very interested in that. So when we wanted to train the trainers, Dr. Ree was generous enough to provide the resource persons. Both Dr. Usha were there. And what we did, Ministry of Higher Education wrote to the Vice Chancellors and to the Deans of Faculties of Humanities, Social Science, and all that. One thing we understood was just getting one person from a faculty would not help them sustain this. So we asked for 3 nominees from each of the 17 faculties of humanities, social science, and the related arts disciplines. And the ministry did provide for the logistics support, and we had a 3-day residential workshop. I should also mention at this point, because one thing was the higher level buying in. Though we wanted to be away from the city, provide a good residential training program, but we still wanted the buy-in from the higher order officials. So we managed to have an inauguration in Colombo where we invited the secretary to the president, which really created a bit of a buzz in media as well as among the higher order people. To date, when I see him, Mr. Veeratunga keeps on asking me, oh, is that program going on well? Because you really had to not only have the buying in of the higher education ministry, to get the other government officials also. So Ministry of Higher Education provided part of the financial support in terms of the local logistics arrangement, and APC ICT provided the resource persons. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Vishaka. So for the sake of time, I guess we are going to wrap up this session. But we talked briefly here, what is primary program, and also importance of bringing ICT in curriculum, and also some experiences that bringing the primary series into university curriculum, and we had the knowledge sharing session here. And then session 8 tomorrow, we are going to talk on the engaged learning, and not exactly the notion of engaged learning Professor Coley is going to present, but the more or less and the sharing the same philosophy of the engaged learning. And we have here several presentations from Nepal and also University of Hyderabad and Seoul Women's University, and then another one. Which one is it? Session 8? Whom am I missing? Thailand, right, Thailand. So we have 4 case studies to talk about engaged learning cases. So today, we mentioned that ICTD curriculum in university, and tomorrow, session 8, in between, we will talk about what is engaged learning, And then session 8, we will link the notion that we discussed today, that how then classroom learning in ICTD can be linked to the community development. And what kind of practices has been doing in these countries. So I hope that overnight, when you sleep, you may dream about this engaged learning and the ICTD, the curriculum, and so that we can have more productive sessions and forward. And with this, I would like to appreciate our panel member, Professor Usha, and also Professor Aruna, Professor Bin Basruddin, and also Mr. Jaffrey, about their great presentation in the panel session number 4. And also thank you so much from floor for your intervention and also sharing your experiences. Thank you so much.